OSHA Basics, General Workplace Safety Awareness. Introduction to Workplace Safety. Workplace safety is a fundamental responsibility shared by both employers and employees. Every work environment contains potential hazards, and understanding how to recognize and control these hazards is essential to preventing injuries and maintaining a safe workplace. Safety is not limited to high-risk industries such as construction or manufacturing. Hazards can exist in any setting, including offices, warehouses, and retail environments. Slips, trips, falls, improper lifting, and exposure to hazardous materials are common risks that can affect workers across all industries. This course provides a general overview of workplace safety principles, OSHA regulations, and the importance of hazard awareness. Understanding these fundamentals helps reduce risk, improve compliance, and promote a culture of safety in the workplace. OSHA regulatory references. OSH Act of 1970, Section 5A.1, General Duty Clause, requires employers to provide a workplace free from recognized hazards that are likely to cause death or serious physical harm. This foundational requirement applies to all workplace conditions, including ladder use, and reinforces the employer's responsibility to identify, evaluate, and control hazards even when specific standards may not address every situation. 29 CFR 1910, General Industry Standards, establishes comprehensive safety and health requirements for general industry workplaces, including regulations related to walking working surfaces, ladder safety, fall protection, and employee training. OSHA regulatory references. Continued. 29 CFR 1926.1053. Ladders. Construction provides specific safety requirements for ladder use in construction environments, where conditions are often dynamic and hazards may change frequently. This standard includes requirements for ladder placement, securement, safe climbing practices, and proper use, helping to prevent falls and ensure that ladders are used safely on active job sites. Key learning objectives. By the end of this slide, you should be able to 1. Understand the importance of workplace safety and hazard awareness in all work environments. 2. Identify the role of OSHA in establishing and enforcing workplace safety standards. 3. Recognize the shared responsibility between employers and employees in maintaining a safe workplace.
Workplace safety begins with awareness. Many incidents occur not because hazards are complex or unavoidable, but because they are not recognized, are underestimated, or are simply overlooked during routine tasks. When individuals become familiar with their environment, they may begin to assume that conditions are safe, which can lead to complacency and an increased risk of injury. Hazards can exist in any work environment, regardless of industry or job role. Whether working in construction, manufacturing, warehousing, healthcare, or office settings, there are always potential risks that must be identified and controlled. These hazards may include physical dangers such as slips, trips, and falls, exposure to hazardous materials, equipment-related risks, or environmental conditions that can impact safety. Understanding workplace safety means recognizing that risk is always present and that it must be actively managed. This begins with the ability to identify hazards, evaluate the level of risk they present, and take appropriate steps to reduce or eliminate those risks. Awareness is the first step in this process and serves as the foundation for all other safety practices. Maintaining a safe workplace is a shared responsibility. Employers are responsible for providing safe working conditions, proper training, and appropriate equipment. Employees are responsible for following established procedures, using equipment correctly, and remaining alert to potential hazards. When both employers and employees actively participate in safety efforts, the likelihood of incidents is significantly reduced. Building and maintaining awareness helps create a culture of safety where hazards are identified early, risks are controlled, and injuries are prevented before they occur.
OSHA Overview and Worker Rights. The Occupational Safety and Health Administration, commonly known as OSHA, was established to ensure safe and healthful working conditions for employees across all industries. OSHA plays a critical role in workplace safety by developing and enforcing standards that are designed to reduce hazards, prevent injuries, and protect workers from unsafe conditions. OSHA establishes regulations that outline minimum safety requirements employers must follow. These standards address a wide range of workplace hazards, including fall protection, hazard communication, machine guarding, and exposure to harmful substances. In addition to setting standards, OSHA conducts workplace inspections to evaluate compliance and identify potential safety violations. When necessary, OSHA can issue citations and penalties to employers who fail to meet these requirements. Workers have important rights under OSHA. These include the right to work in a safe environment, the right to receive training on workplace hazards, and the right to access information about potential risks. Workers also have the right to report unsafe conditions or file complaints without fear of retaliation. These protections are essential for encouraging employees to speak up and help identify hazards before they result in incidents. Employers also have clearly defined responsibilities. They are required to provide a workplace free from recognized hazards, comply with applicable OSHA standards, and ensure that employees receive proper training and necessary protective equipment. Employers must also take corrective action when hazards are identified and maintain a commitment to ongoing safety improvement. Understanding these rights and responsibilities is critical for maintaining compliance and promoting accountability in the workplace. When both employers and employees understand their roles and actively participate in safety efforts, it helps create a safer work environment and reduces the likelihood of injuries and violations. OSHA regulatory references. OSH Act of 1970 established the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, and provides the legal framework for ensuring safe and healthful working conditions for employees. The Act outlines the rights of workers, the responsibilities of employers, and the authority of OSHA to set and enforce safety standards, conduct inspections, and issue citations when violations are identified. OSH Act of 1970, Section 5A, 1, General Duty Clause, requires employers to provide a workplace free from recognized hazards that are likely to cause death or serious physical harm. OSHA regulatory references. Continued. 29 CFR 1904, Record-Keeping Requirements, establishes requirements for recording and reporting workplace injuries and illnesses. Employers must maintain accurate records, including OSHA 300 logs, 300A summaries, and 301 incident reports, to track workplace incidents and identify trends. Proper record keeping supports compliance, improves hazard recognition, and helps prevent future incidents. 29 CFR 1903, Inspections, Citations, and Proposed Penalties, outlines OSHA's authority and procedures for conducting workplace inspections, issuing citations, and enforcing penalties. Key learning objectives. By the end of this slide, you should be able to 1. Recognize. Recognize OSHA's role in establishing, enforcing, and supporting workplace safety standards. 2. Understand. Understand worker rights under OSHA and the importance of reporting hazards. 3. Know. Know that employers are required to provide a workplace free from recognized hazards.
OSHA provides the framework for workplace safety by establishing standards, guidelines, and enforcement mechanisms designed to reduce hazards and protect workers. These regulations set the minimum requirements that employers must follow, but compliance is not achieved through regulations alone. A safe workplace depends on the active participation of both employers and employees, working together to identify, control, and prevent hazards. Employers are responsible for creating and maintaining safe working conditions, providing appropriate training, and ensuring that safety procedures are clearly communicated and consistently followed. However, even with strong safety programs in place, hazards can still arise during daily operations. This is where employee involvement becomes essential. Workers play a critical role in maintaining workplace safety. They are often the first to observe unsafe conditions, equipment issues, or changes in the work environment that may introduce new risks. Recognizing and reporting these hazards in a timely manner helps prevent incidents before they occur. When employers support open communication and workers actively participate in safety efforts, knowing that their input contributes to a safer workplace for everyone. OSHA protects workers' rights to report hazards and unsafe conditions without fear of retaliation. This protection is essential in encouraging open communication and ensuring that safety concerns are addressed promptly. When workers are hesitant to report issues, hazards may go uncorrected, increasing the likelihood of injury or illness. It leads to better hazard recognition, faster corrective action, and a safer work environment overall. Creating a culture where safety is a shared responsibility helps strengthen compliance and accountability. It leads to better hazard recognition, faster corrective action, and a safer work environment overall. Hazard recognition and risk awareness are among the most important components of workplace safety. A hazard is any condition or situation that has the potential to cause injury, illness, or damage to equipment or property. Hazards can take many forms and may not always be immediately obvious. They can be physical, such as unguarded machinery or slippery surfaces, chemical, such as exposure to hazardous substances, biological, such as bacteria or viruses, or ergonomic, such as repetitive motions or improper lifting techniques. Recognizing hazards requires more than simply observing the work environment. It involves understanding how tasks are performed, how equipment is used, and how conditions can change over time. Many hazards develop gradually or only become apparent under certain circumstances, such as increased workload, environmental changes, and identifying signs of equipment wear and tear. Workers must remain aware of their surroundings and be able to identify both obvious and less visible risks. Risk awareness goes a step further by evaluating the likelihood that a hazard will result in an incident and the potential severity of that incident. Some hazards may be low risk but occur frequently, while others may be less common but have severe or even fatal consequences. Understanding both the probability and the potential impact of a hazard helps prioritize which risks need to be addressed first. Effective hazard recognition also involves anticipating potential problems before they occur. This includes considering how a task might go wrong, what could fail, and how environmental factors such as weather, lighting, or workspace conditions might influence safety. Workers should continuously assess their environment rather than relying on assumptions that conditions are safe. Once hazards are identified, appropriate steps can be taken to eliminate or control the risk. This may include removing the hazard entirely, implementing engineering controls, following established administrative safety procedures, or using personal protective equipment. The goal is to reduce the risk to an acceptable level and prevent incidents from occurring. Developing strong hazard recognition and risk awareness skills helps create a proactive safety culture. When workers and employers consistently identify and address hazards early, it reduces the likelihood of injuries, improves overall safety performance, and supports compliance with workplace safety standards.
OSHA regulatory references. 29 CFR 1910.132 requires employers to assess the workplace for hazards that may require the use of personal protective equipment and to ensure that appropriate PPE is selected, provided, and properly used. This standard emphasizes the importance of hazard assessment as a foundational step in identifying risks and implementing protective measures to reduce exposure to workplace hazards. 29 CFR 1910.1200 establishes requirements for identifying and communicating chemical hazards in the workplace. Employers must ensure that employees are informed about hazardous substances through labeling, safety data sheets, and training. Key learning objectives. By the end of this slide, you should be able to 1. Understand. Understand what constitutes a hazard and recognize that hazards can be physical, chemical, biological, or ergonomic in nature. 2. Recognize. Recognize how to assess risk by considering both the probability that a hazard will lead to an incident and the potential impact of that incident. 3. Describe. Describe the importance of early hazard identification in preventing injuries and maintaining a safe workplace.
Hazard recognition is the first step in preventing workplace incidents and is a critical component of maintaining a safe and effective work environment. Most workplace injuries do not occur because hazards are unknown, but because they are not recognized in time or are underestimated during routine tasks. Developing the ability to identify hazards early allows workers to take action before conditions lead to an incident. Workers must remain aware of their surroundings at all times. This includes observing the physical environment, understanding how tasks are performed, and recognizing how equipment, materials, and conditions interact. Even everyday tasks can introduce risk when conditions change, such as shifts in workload, environmental factors like weather or lighting, or equipment that becomes worn or improperly maintained. Hazards are often dynamic, meaning they can develop or change throughout the course of a task. A workspace that appears safe at the beginning of a shift may become hazardous due to clutter, spills, moving equipment, or changes in personnel. Maintaining awareness requires continuous observation rather than relying on assumptions that conditions remain safe. Understanding how tasks create risk is also essential. Workers should consider what could go wrong during each step of a job, including how improper techniques, distractions, or shortcuts might increase the likelihood of an incident. Recognizing these risks allows workers to adjust their actions and follow safer procedures. Early identification of hazards allows for proactive control measures to be implemented. These controls may include eliminating the hazard, using safer equipment, applying administrative procedures, or wearing appropriate personal protective equipment. Addressing hazards early reduces the likelihood of incidents and minimizes the severity of potential outcomes. By consistently practicing hazard recognition, workers contribute to a proactive safety culture, where risks are identified and managed before they result in injury or damage. This approach not only improves individual safety, but also supports overall workplace compliance and operational efficiency.
In this real-life scenario, an employee working in a warehouse notices a small liquid spill in a frequently used walkway near a storage area. The spill is not large, and at first glance, it may seem insignificant. However, the employee recognizes that the area has high foot traffic, with workers regularly moving through the space while carrying materials and operating equipment such as pallet jacks. Instead of ignoring the spill or assuming someone else will take care of it, the employee immediately reports the hazard to a supervisor and retrieves a caution sign to place in the area. The employee also takes steps to block off the immediate section to prevent others from walking through it until it can be properly cleaned. Shortly after, another worker approaches the area while focused on moving inventory and does not initially notice the spill. Because of the warning sign and the blocked-off space, the worker is alerted in time to avoid stepping into the hazard. Maintenance is then able to clean the spill safely, restoring the area to normal conditions. This simple decision to act quickly prevented a potential slip-and-fall incident that could have resulted in injury, lost work time, and possible workers' compensation claims. This example highlights how recognizing a hazard and taking immediate action, even for something that appears minor, can significantly reduce risk and contribute to a safer workplace. Safety responsibilities and incident prevention. Workplace safety is a shared responsibility between employers and employees. Employers are responsible for providing a safe work environment, proper training, hazard controls, and necessary protective equipment. They must also comply with OSHA regulations and establish safety programs that identify and mitigate risks. Employees also play a critical role in maintaining workplace safety. They are responsible for following established procedures, using equipment correctly, wearing required PPE, and reporting hazards or unsafe conditions. Failing to follow safety procedures or taking shortcuts can significantly increase the risk of injury. Incident prevention depends heavily on communication and accountability. Workers must feel comfortable reporting hazards without fear of retaliation, and employers must respond promptly to safety concerns. A strong safety culture encourages participation, awareness, and continuous improvement. Many workplace incidents occur due to common preventable factors such as complacency, lack of attention, rushing, or failure to follow procedures. Recognizing these behaviors and correcting them is essential in reducing incidents. Preventing incidents requires a proactive mindset. Instead of reacting after something goes wrong, both employers and employees should focus on identifying risks early, reinforcing safe behaviors, and maintaining consistent safety practices. A strong commitment to safety responsibilities at all levels creates a work environment where risks are minimized and workers are protected. OSHA regulatory references. 29 CFR 1904, Recording and Reporting Occupational Injuries and Illnesses, establishes the requirements for employers to accurately record workplace injuries and illnesses, maintain OSHA logs such as the 300, 300A, and 301 forms, and report severe incidents, including fatalities, hospitalizations, amputations, and loss of an eye, within specified timeframes to ensure proper tracking and regulatory oversight. OSHA Act Section 5A.1, General Duty Clause, requires employers to provide a workplace free from recognized hazards that are likely to cause death or serious physical harm, even in situations where no specific OSHA standard applies, making it a foundational requirement for overall workplace safety and hazard prevention. OSHA regulatory references continued. OSHA Act Section 5B, Employee Responsibilities, establishes that employees are responsible for complying with all applicable OSHA safety standards, rules, and regulations, as well as following employer-provided safety procedures to help maintain a safe and healthful workplace for themselves and others. 29 CFR 1904.39, Reporting Fatalities and Severe Injuries, specifies the employer's obligation to report work-related fatalities within 8 hours and serious injuries such as inpatient hospitalizations, amputations, or loss of an eye within 24 hours, ensuring OSHA is promptly notified of critical incidents for potential investigation and hazard mitigation. Key learning objectives. By the end of this section, you should be able to 1. Develop a clear understanding of how both employers and employees share responsibility for maintaining a safe work environment. 2. Identify typical factors that lead to workplace injuries and understand how applying proper safety practices can prevent these incidents from occurring. 3. Recognize the critical role that clear communication, accurate incident reporting, and personal accountability play in maintaining workplace safety.
Safety in the workplace is not the responsibility of one individual or one department. It is a shared responsibility that requires active participation from everyone. Employers play a critical role by establishing the framework for safety. This includes creating policies, providing training, maintaining equipment, and ensuring that hazards are identified and controlled. However, even the strongest safety program cannot be effective unless employees actively engage with it. Workers must follow established procedures, use protective equipment correctly, and speak up when something does not seem safe. Safety is a system, and every person is a part of that system. One of the most important realities to understand is that most workplace incidents are preventable. Injuries rarely happen by chance. They are often the result of patterns of behavior that develop over time. Common examples include rushing to complete a task faster, becoming complacent with routine work, or choosing not to follow established safety procedures because the task seems simple or familiar. These behaviors may not seem dangerous in the moment, but they increase risk significantly. Over time, small shortcuts can lead to serious consequences. Recognizing these patterns is a key step in preventing incidents. When workers are aware of how rushing, distraction, or overconfidence can affect their decision-making, they are better equipped to pause and make safer choices. Taking a few extra moments to follow the correct procedure, verify conditions, or use the right protective equipment can make the difference between a safe outcome and an injury. Safety is often about consistency, doing the right thing every time, even when the task feels routine. Communication is another essential part of maintaining a safe workplace. Clear and open communication allows hazards to be identified and addressed before they lead to incidents. Employees should feel comfortable reporting unsafe conditions, equipment issues, or near misses without hesitation. Reporting is not about assigning blame, it is about preventing future harm. When hazards are reported early, corrective actions can be taken to eliminate or reduce risk for everyone. Accountability also plays a critical role in building a strong safety culture. This means that both employers and employees take responsibility for their actions. Employers must ensure that safety systems are in place and functioning effectively, while employees must follow procedures and uphold safety standards in their daily work. Holding each other accountable, respectfully and professionally, helps reinforce the importance of safety and ensures that standards are consistently maintained. Over time, consistent communication, proper reporting, and shared accountability create a stronger safety culture. In a positive safety culture, workers look out for one another, hazards are addressed quickly, and safe behaviors become the norm rather than the exception. This type of environment not only reduces incidents, but also supports long-term safety and well-being for everyone in the workplace. Ultimately, safety is not a one-time effort or a checklist to complete. It is an ongoing commitment that requires attention, awareness, and participation every day. By working together and staying focused on safe practices, workplaces can significantly reduce risk and prevent injuries before they occur. Recognizing hazards is only the first step. Controlling those hazards is what prevents injuries and incidents. Hazard control involves taking deliberate steps to eliminate or reduce workplace risks using proven safety methods. One of the most effective ways to understand hazard control is through the hierarchy of controls. This approach prioritizes methods based on effectiveness. The most effective control is elimination, which removes the hazard entirely. If elimination is not possible, substitution replaces the hazard with a safer alternative. Engineering controls isolate people from hazards. Administrative controls involve policies, procedures, and training that reduce exposure. Personal protective equipment, or PPE, is considered the last line of defense when other controls cannot fully eliminate risk. Safe work practices are essential in supporting these controls. These include following established procedures, maintaining proper housekeeping, using tools and equipment correctly, and staying alert to changing conditions. Even well-designed controls can fail if safe work practices are not followed consistently. Housekeeping plays a major role in hazard control. Keeping work areas clean and organized helps prevent slips, trips, and falls, which are among the most common workplace incidents. Proper storage of materials and tools also reduces clutter. Another key component of hazard control is proper use of PPE. Equipment must be selected based on the specific hazards present. PPE must also be worn correctly and maintained to remain effective. Ultimately, hazard control is about reducing risk to an acceptable level. By applying the hierarchy of controls and maintaining strong, safe work practices, workplaces can significantly reduce the likelihood of injuries.
OSHA regulatory references. 29 CFR 1910.132, General Requirements for Personal Protective Equipment, PPE, establishes the requirement for employers to assess workplace hazards and determine when PPE is necessary to protect employees. It also requires proper selection, training, use, and maintenance of PPE to ensure it effectively reduces exposure to workplace hazards. 29 CFR 1910.22, Walking Working Surfaces, Housekeeping and Slip Trip Prevention, requires employers to keep all walking working surfaces clean, orderly, and in a sanitary condition to prevent slips, trips, and falls. This includes promptly cleaning spills, maintaining clear pathways, and ensuring that floors and surfaces are free from hazards that could cause injury. OSHA regulatory references.
Continued.
OSHA Safety and Health Program Management Guidelines provides a framework for developing and maintaining effective workplace safety programs, including hazard identification, employee participation, training, and continuous improvement. These guidelines emphasize proactive safety management and share responsibility between employers and employees. OSHA Act Section 5A.1, General Duty Clause, requires employers to provide a workplace free from recognized hazards that are likely to cause death or serious physical harm, even when a specific OSHA standard may not exist. This reinforces the responsibility to address common hazards such as poor housekeeping, lack of PPE, and unsafe work practices. Key learning objectives. By the end of this slide, you should be able to
1.
Develop an understanding of the hierarchy of controls as a structured approach to minimizing workplace hazards.
2.
Identify how consistent use of safe work practices, such as following procedures, maintaining awareness, and avoiding shortcuts.
3.
Understand why selecting, using, and maintaining appropriate personal protective equipment is essential for reducing exposure to hazards.
Controlling hazards is what ultimately prevents workplace incidents. While identifying hazards is an important first step, it does not reduce risk by itself. Real safety improvement happens when appropriate controls are put in place and used consistently. This is where the hierarchy of controls becomes essential. It provides a structured way to determine the most effective methods for reducing or eliminating hazards. At the top of the hierarchy is elimination, removing the hazard entirely. If the hazard no longer exists, the risk is gone. Next is substitution, where a safer alternative replaces a more dangerous material or process. Engineering controls follow, which involve physically changing equipment or the work environment to reduce exposure, such as guards, ventilation systems, or barriers. Administrative controls include policies, procedures, and scheduling changes that limit exposure, such as rotating workers or adjusting work practices. Finally, personal protective equipment, or PPE, is used as a last line of defense when hazards cannot be fully controlled by other means. Understanding this hierarchy helps workers and employers make better decisions about how to manage risk. Relying only on PPE is not as effective as eliminating a hazard or controlling it at the source. The goal is always to use the highest level of control that is practical for the situation. In addition to these controls, safe work practices play a critical role in preventing incidents. Procedures are developed to ensure that tasks are performed safely, but they only work when they are followed consistently. Even the most well-designed safety systems can fail if workers take shortcuts, rush through tasks, or ignore established guidelines. For example, bypassing a machine guard, skipping a step in a lockout procedure, or failing to use required protective equipment can quickly turn a controlled situation into a hazardous one. Consistency is key. Safe work practices must be applied every time, not just when conditions seem risky. Routine tasks can create a false sense of security, leading to complacency. Maintaining focus and following procedures, even during familiar or repetitive work, helps prevent these types of incidents. Another important factor in hazard control is workplace organization and housekeeping. Keeping work areas clean and orderly reduces many common risks, such as slips, trips, and falls. Spilled materials, cluttered walkways, and poorly stored tools can all create hazards that are easily preventable. Good housekeeping is a simple but highly effective way to improve safety across any work environment. Finally, the proper use of personal protective equipment provides an additional layer of protection. PPE such as gloves, eye protection, hearing protection, and hard hats helps reduce exposure to hazards that cannot be fully eliminated. However, PPE must be correctly selected, properly fitted, and consistently used to be effective. When hazard controls, safe work practices, housekeeping, and PPE are all applied together, they create a strong and reliable safety system. Each element supports the others, reducing overall risk and helping to prevent workplace injuries. By understanding and applying these principles, workers contribute to a safer environment for themselves and everyone around them.
Thank you for your participation. We appreciate your time and attention in completing this course. By understanding your rights and responsibilities, you're contributing to a safer workplace for yourself and your coworkers. Stay engaged and keep the safety-first mindset as you dive into specific hazard topics to further enhance your knowledge and protect your well-being. Stay safe and keep learning.